I thought I'd talk about this today, about how referrals could be stopping you getting success in your business, or as a salesperson, referrals might be stopping you getting success. Not because I think referrals are bad, but because if that's your main source of business, it actually leaves you ill-equipped and unprepared to get any other form of business. So I meet a lot of people who've come out of a corporate career and they've started a business. And for the first 6, 9, even up to the first 12, 18 months, a lot of their business comes from people they've known from their corporate career, the network they've built up. So they have a good reputation with them. They've got a track record with them. You know, these people have worked alongside them. So all of that stuff provides a steady stream of referrals when you get going. And, you know, referrals are brilliant, by the way, just to say. But the reason why they're harmful, particularly to those people coming out of corporate, is you never get a sense of what it's like to operate your business in a competitive environment. If you think about it, right, if you've got friends, colleagues, you know, people you've worked with in the past who are now bringing business to you, it's warm. It's warm. You've got a fair hearing because you're coming in on a recommendation. And so you've never had to really test the value proposition of your business in a competitive environment. And it leaves a lot of people, firstly, honestly, delusional about what it means to actually get business in the big wide world. And I know I'm being patronizing in saying it, but it's true. It leaves you delusional, but also it can leave you disappointed and like you're deluded about what it takes, number one, to build a value proposition that operates and works in a competitive environment like LinkedIn. 2, it leaves you disillusioned because you are constantly wondering why these people are buying and these people aren't. And you might think it's the platform. I've seen people literally sabotage opportunities on LinkedIn because their mentality is, I'm going to deal with this like a referral. They don't say that to themselves, but their autopilot, their default is to deal with it how they've dealt with all the referrals. And they screw them up. They literally screw them up. And I've seen this firsthand, where basically people default to how they've closed business and got business with referrals, and then they come across as weak. Their offer comes across weak. Their position, the way they solve a problem, comes across as weak. And then they wonder why nobody's buying. And I'd love to say that this is people who don't know what they're doing, but often the people who do know what they're doing, the people who are excellent at what they do, are the worst at this. And it's because of 2 things. They're engrossed in their topic. They love their topic, so they're smothered into that world. So they've lost sight of what the client's world is like, the prospect's audience is like, so they don't really understand how the prospect sees their world. So that's like a disconnect between how they see the situation. But also, they're talking to the prospect like a referral, and it's totally different. Now, in my business, I get referrals, but I may have spoke to you about this, but I had a period a few years ago where basically the pipeline ran dry and we had to really drum up business, like really, really fast. Like really, really fast. We had a hole, and I vowed I would never allow a hole to happen again. And so it's a cheesy saying, it's a cheesy sales gimmick, but in my head, I always have the always be marketing. Always, even when we're busy, even when we're stacked out, even when we can't take any more work, always be marketing. So you've always got people at various stages of the pipeline. So you're never having to pick and choose or worry about what if a hole appears, or what if, you know, a client has to end their services, budget cuts, all that kind of stuff. So I've always had that plan in my head that I must always be marketing. That means for most of my career, I have had the experience of selling to people without referrals. Now, I get referrals, but you'll see the difference in a moment. I get referrals, and they're, for me, the icing on the cake. But my day-to-day experience of marketing my business and selling my services, and our team's experience, is we are selling to an audience who have no previous history with us, probably aren't familiar with us, and so we operate in that environment. That means our value proposition has to be tested with people who basically know nothing about us. We have to communicate and assume that they know nothing about us. We have to assume that they're skeptical. And you might think, well, I can assume all of that. Yeah, but if you've been running with referrals where literally you've never had to initiate a conversation with a complete stranger without a warm introduction, if you've never had to run a sales conversation without a warm introduction, just think about that. For an example, think about it like this. If you've never run a sales conversation without a warm introduction, you've only ever done a sales conversation where the person is telling you they're coming to find out about your services. It's all you've ever done. You've never had to do any of the things where basically you have to uncover their need. You've never had to do that, or you've never had to do it consistently. And so in one sense, those referrals spoil you and limit your chances of getting a conversion on a less warm or introduced call. Think about it. If you're getting people coming to a call because they've been recommended your services, 1, they're looking to buy a service similar to yours. 2, they've got a lot of trust in you already because you come from a source that they trust. So they already trust you. They already know that you can do the service. And all you have to do, think about it, is not fuck that call up. Just don't fuck it up. And you've got a sale. Now let's flip that with somebody who's a little bit earlier in that stage, doesn't know you as well, doesn't come with that glowing recommendation from somebody they trust. Maybe is a little bit skeptic, probably has been through other services and looked at other things, doesn't want to be sold to, but has a problem. If you treat them the same way, you will lose that person and they won't even tell you. They won't even tell you because they'll be polite. They'll listen to you and they'll say at the end, oh, I've got no questions. It all makes sense to me. And you'll think that's a great deal. And actually you've got nothing. Actually, they've just been nice to you because you think, or mentally, you're treating them the same as a referral because that's your default. Now, in a marketing scenario, let's just talk about this in a marketing scenario. For you to get an inquiry or a call, and I've seen people do this so many times, you get somebody interested in what you do. Maybe on LinkedIn, you post about something and they inquire and ask you more details about it. And because you're mentally in the space of treating them the default way, which is a referral way, you just offer to have a conversation with them. Quite loose, quite relaxed. Yeah. And guess what? That conversation never happens. Never happens. They ghost you. Because for you to get a call with somebody who's less familiar with you, is not coming on the back of a referral, they have to feel like the trade-off of giving you 30 minutes of their time, potentially enduring an icky sales pitch. I would never advocate an icky sales pitch, but they don't know what you're going to do on the call. There's all of these reasons they've got to not go on a call with you. And you're just inviting them onto a call with no reason. I've seen this so many times. Like, oh yeah, if you want more info, let's set up a time to speak. More info? Is that really a motivation to go on a call? Not really. Not when you think, oh, they're going to try and twist my arm into buying something. I've got 1,000,001 things to do. All of those reasons stack up of why not to have a call. And your option is, well, let's just have a call and I'll talk it through with you. Really? It's a bit wishy-washy. Now, if they're a referral and they're saying, hey, Tim's just told me about how you helped him. I'd love to know more about it. Sure, let's just have a call and I'll talk you more through it. Totally different conversation, totally different perspective, totally different setting. It works a treat. So this default referral mentality, and you've never decided to have the default referral. It's just your experience. It's just what you've seen. That, in one sense, ruins you for the big wide world. So when you're coming onto LinkedIn, you're posting and your mentality is you're talking to people who already know what they want. You're talking to people through your posts to people who already know what they want. Because a referral person comes to you and says, oh yeah, I'm looking for that coaching. So you're talking exactly to the people who have had a referral and are just coming looking. But the vast majority of people are not at that solution stage. In the big wide world, the majority of your target market are not at solution hunting stage. So what you're doing is that referral mentality, what you're used to, you're putting out content, speaking to the people who are at the solution stage, which is about somewhat, it depends on whose stats you take, and how seriously you divide it. But there's a stat that says 3% of the market are active buying solutions right now, 3%. there's a further 7% who are looking but not serious. In other words, they're 3 or 4 months away from actually buying anything. Now, this is where I disagree with some people, because I think there's about 30% of the market that are problem aware. In other words, they know they have a problem, but don't necessarily have the motivation to do anything about it right now. They may be living in the pain, and the pain might have not reached a threshold that you can convert it yet. But I have a philosophy that I will talk to the people who are problem aware, and I will try and nurture the people who are problem aware through my LinkedIn. That's what I'm trying to achieve, so that they see me as the trusted source down the line. But if you're approaching LinkedIn and your referral experience kicks in, you'll just talk to the people at the end. And at the end, if you meet people at the end and they don't know you, like you, trust you, you're going into a very competitive environment. It's the most competitive environment. Trying to get a client who's already looking at solutions and you're one of the solutions means you have to be shit hot at selling what you do. And I'm not meaning pushy here. I'm meaning being shit hot at communicating the value of what you do. If you're going to go down and try and appeal to people at the bottom of the end of the buying journey, where they're just evaluating options, you have to be shit hot at what you're doing. If you're doing it earlier, if you're reaching the people who are problem aware, you've got time to build that trust, which makes the selling bit, you become a more preferred option further down the line. So think about it like this, if you're used to selling to people because you get referrals, that prepares your mentality and your approach to think about the way people are at the end of the buying journey, because that's where they're coming to you. Referrals are usually coming to you from people who are recommending and saying, I got it done here, you should go there. I got this service from this person, you should go and get it from them too. So number one, you're getting a warm, trusted introduction at the end of the buying journey, right? So it's warm, you're more trusted, so there's more weight on you than somebody else because it's coming from a recommended source. That's number one. Number two, it's at the end of the buying journey. So a lot of the things that you have to do in the real big wide world, follow-ups and all that kind of stuff to actually convert, you've never done. So now imagine you're used to selling to warm introductions and you're used to dealing with people at the end of the buying journey where it's more about what does it do, how does it work, right? So it's more about how does it work, the details. You've never had to persuasively explain the value of what you do in a competitive environment. And now you go to LinkedIn where you've probably not built up any traction there because you've not used it very much. So you're on LinkedIn. You're probably being seen by a lot of people who are strangers, potentially, and you're appealing to people at the end of the buying journey with no trust piece behind you, no nurturing behind you. And now let's say you do get a lead. You do get a lead, and because of your referral experience, you don't have the sales skills. Yeah, so you go through that call doing what you would normally do with a referral, and the prospect won't tell you the truth because they're being polite. They're not going to tell you I don't see why this is valuable. They're just going to not see it. And this is what happens all the time, right? And the sad part about it is the people who are reliant on referrals don't even know that this is happening because their experience, the bubble they've operated in, blinds them to the fact that there would be any different way. And some of you who are watching me are in marketing and sales, and you know this is true because you've seen it too. You've seen people do this, or you've had this done to you. Somebody who comes on and you're going, I really do need to work on, my mindset. And the coach just says to you, well, I've got a mindset program and it's 12 weeks and we can do this and we can do that. And you're like, yeah, but I still don't know why would this be the best thing for me? So they go, oh, that's nice information. Thank you so much. Oh, how much is it? Oh, all right. Let me go away and think about it. Or, and your coach, you Mr. Referral or Mrs. Referral or Miss Referral, you're like, oh, wow, they asked about pricing and everything. That's a real done deal. And actually, it's nowhere near a done deal. It's just people being polite to you. So what am I saying? I'm saying referrals are the absolute best. Absolute best. But if you need to operate in a more commercial environment, you don't want to, let's be honest. We'd all love people to just come and hand us money and say, I want to work with you. That would be the dream scenario, right? That literally we don't have to sell anything. We don't have to market anything. People just come and give us money. But that's not realistic. So if you think, and this is what I would say, if you think that referrals are not going to be the thing you can bank on but to date, the majority of your clients and leads have come from referrals, you have to first acknowledge you have a warped perception of what it's like to sell in a commercial environment. Number one, you're used to selling to people at the end of the buying journey where they know more or less what they want. That's the first thing. And so they're just coming to find out how your thing works, right? So you've never had to persuasively sell it. And that's not manipulation. It's about taking people through step by step so that they can see that this is valuable to them. And sometimes it isn't, right? So not every customer you get, but you have to go through that journey with them. So you've never had to do that consistently. It's not your default. So you're used to this end of the buying journey customer where it's far more transactional. It's far more about what it does and how it works and what the cost is, than uncovering the value and it's showing the value and helping people see the value in a bigger sense. So that's the first problem you've got. So what does that do to you? That does things where you don't really realize you have to help people move through stages. So you don't know how to persuade people to come on calls. You don't know how to structure a proposal to actually keep the reason to buy top of mind. You don't know how to get them on a call. So you say things like, let me know if you want more info or if you'd like to talk it through. And that means nothing to prospects who are not immediately at the end of the buying journey. So you've got those things going on. And then the second thing going on is obviously you're used to having very warm introductions. So you're not doing the things that actually expose your value to a wider audience. You're focused on the wrong things, and that's infecting how you do your content, how you do your profile, how you outreach, how you communicate, the works. And I've seen this so many times, and I'd love to say that it's isolated, but it really isn't. And I'm going to pick on salespeople for a minute now. I'm going to hammer salespeople for a moment because salespeople have this problem too. If you've got a really good marketing department in your business, they will be dripping in nurtured and warm leads into the sales team. So there's this phrase in sales called order takers. And it's what happens if a sales team has been overly exposed to lots of warm leads. They lose their drive, ability, and skill set, or forget it at the very least, of selling to people who are not warm leads. I have seen salespeople avoid outreach and ditch everything, only just focus on what they believe will be easy to convert because they don't want to go through the work of having to convert leads. Yeah, I've seen another thing, and this will anger a few marketing managers, but I'll tell you anyway. If you've been doing automated AI outreach or automated sequences, you have ruined your sales skills. If that's what you've done for the last however long, 4 or 5 years, you have probably destroyed your sales skills. Because what you've done is basically removed yourself from talking to prospects and played a numbers game to compensate for the fact that you're not individually understanding prospects. So you're sending like 5 emails in a sequence, you get a bite, you deal with the bite, right? So that prospecting skill, that ability from a salesperson to go and hunt has been lost too. It's not quite the same problem that business owners have, but it is a lost thing. And as a business, I'll just say this as a business, we get so many leads into our business that actually we can cherry pick who we work with. But this year we decided we were gonna be better at this and pursue it. And things like hyper-targeted prospecting, I teach this to salespeople. It's the most effective form of outreach across LinkedIn, even email. It's the most effective form of outreach, but most salespeople don't want to do it. And they don't want to do it because it takes them time. But you can get about a 15% meeting booking rate from hyper-targeted outreach, and salespeople don't want to do it. Why do they not want to do it? Well, if you've had a lot of warm leads coming in, why would you want to spend time doing cold? Why would you want to spend time putting effort into something that might not convert? So actually, salespeople that have been exposed to a lot of warm leads end up where they prioritize the easy conversions. We turn them into order takers. That's the first thing. But that art of hunting down opportunities, I see very few salespeople who do that. They would much rather remove themselves from the process and blindly pitch people with generic messaging and see if they get a bite. They only want to talk to people who are interested, which basically says if you're not showing signals to me that you're going to buy something, I am not going to talk to you. And that's a flaw. I'll give you an example. Curtis on our team, he does hyper-targeted prospecting, which, doesn't have to be spammy, doesn't have to be pitchy, doesn't have to be aggressive, right? He's closed about 15K of new business from LinkedIn in September already from hyper-targeted prospecting. Hyper-targeted prospecting. And it doesn't take very long. Even I do it. I get in the morning after I finish this live. I send between 5 and 10 outreach messages that are really focused. It takes me about 45 minutes and I've got conversations booked in the diary. Maybe not that same day, but certainly in the next couple of days because of it. That's how hyper-targeted prospecting works. And salespeople, I know I started with the referrals piece, but salespeople and marketers were listening to me, right? If your sales team are used to warm leads, you have a problem. You have a problem because basically as soon as those leads dry up, you now have to fight for your lunch. And the people who would go into battle for you and go and fight for that lunch are out of practice, totally out of practice. And it's got to be a culture change. Sure, everybody's raving about AI, right? But I'll be honest with you, most of the AI outreach I see is absolute shit. It's total shit. The fact that people are congratulating me in emails about the post I wrote the other day, it just feels wrong. And this is the thing that AI is not going to be able to get, is prospects can feel when messaging is off and AI can't. And so I always say to people, before you go onto LinkedIn with some weird, fandangled, clever, complicated, automated system, go manual, figure out what works, and then look at how can you scale it. Don't try and scale something that you have no idea whether it will perform. I get that most marketing success rate is in the 3 and 5% range, but that's 3 and 5% to conversion, not 3 and 5% to response. Cold outreach right now is a 0.6% response rate, right? So what we think is, oh, well, if we send 100 messages, 200 messages, we'll get one bite. And how many are you going to convert? So we go manual, get something working, know it performs, get an instinct for what works and what doesn't. And then we look to how can we scale this? How can we make it more efficient? This is how you're supposed to run ads, by the way, but most people don't get it. I see marketing teams going, well, our posts don't do well, so we're boosting them. If your posts aren't doing well, they're not speaking to the audience. So no amount of boosting them will solve that problem. You're just amplifying poor performance. So you're switching out signal for noise. So I always say go manual first. It's not very popular when we love to automate everything and make everything perfect and simple, but it'll save you a lot of stress and a lot of time, and you'll learn how to write better copy, better ads, send better messages, and then you can scale it. But coming back to my original point, referrals are brilliant. I love referrals, but they need to be the icing on the cake. If you're reliant on them, if that's where your main source of business is coming from, it will damage your business because you will not know how to operate your business, to market your business, to sell your services in a competitive environment. And you will also market to people at the end of their buying journey, which is the most competitive part of the process. Whereas if you're marketing to people at problem awareness stage, you can build the trust and become the first choice, making your sales process easier. But if you've been on referrals, you've got the two things working against you. You've not got the sales skills or the marketing skills. The marketing muscle that you should have built up is not developed enough to be able to close those people at the end of the buying journey if there's no trust, no referral. So it's kind of like a sabotage loop. So I'd encourage you, even if you're stacked out with business with referrals for the next 6 months, you should be working to get some clients, get some leads, and learn the skills that are needed. They're not hard. They're just different sets of skills. If you're used to referrals, you're in an autopilot mode, and there is a different autopilot mode you need to learn. It's not hard. It's just you have to reframe what you're doing, and it will work. And if you use those, and the great thing about it, if you know how to sell to people who are not referrals, it's very easy to sell to people who are referrals, but it's not easy the other way around. Anyway, I've ranted on for a little bit. Look, guys, I hope this was helpful. Don't take offense if you're reliant on referrals and you think I've been, bashing you. I am a little bit, because as long as you keep relying on referrals and that being your main source of business, it will continue to influence the way you behave, the way you market, the way you sell, the way you promote, all of that stuff. But I'm not doing it from a place of, I hate you. I'm doing it from a place of, I've seen people struggle with this, and I've seen people hit crunch point where I'll leave you with one story. A guy I worked with a number of years ago, a coach, had some very cushy referrals and deals. He was doing some associate work and was doing very, very well, some big names. And he'd never really took seriously marketing his business. You know, he was working with some big companies, car companies and everything, on executive coaching. Good cushy money. And he was doing it and delivering the goods, but then there was an internal restructure. A new learning and development team came in, and he had to compete for his own business again with new leadership team, and he lost it. So he lost the work he'd already been doing because somebody came in with a more competitive offer, and he lost the work. And then he tried to scramble because now his biggest customer, which was 70-80% of his income, had gone. So now he's scrambling to try and replace that work. You do not replace a 100K deal in weeks or days. You do not do it. It just does not work. And I'd been saying to him, you need to start marketing yourself properly. And he would kind of say, yeah, I will. And then he'd be too busy and not do it. Anyway, long story short, he scrambled for a few months till the contract came to an end and the money ran dry. Didn't really make an impact because trying to fix a problem in a short period of time is a fool's game. He now sells utility warehouse. And that's not being nasty to utility warehouse, but it's hardly executive coaching. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'll leave you with that thought. But if you're reliant on referrals, you need to start building your competitive edge again. You need to start building up that marketing and sales muscle.